Hello and welcome to this week's Instagram Live. Resentment, boundaries, and consequences. If you feel resentful a lot and you struggle with setting boundaries or even understand what the heck those are, let alone having consequences that work, because yelling and nagging, that is so 2018, then you are in the right place. Welcome to my Instagram Live. I am talking about a topic that I think so many of us struggle with, and really we're not being taught, so it's not a wonder. So if you're like me, you were raised in a home that didn't do healthy, effective boundaries. And I'm not saying that because your parents are evil or my parents are evil or lacking intelligence. That's not what I'm talking about, okay? The generation of parenting that like a generation ago was more about control, compliance, guilt, shame, and fear. That was more about how parenting worked. And that just was normal then, okay? So here you and I are as parents today, like, can I get a hell yeah? And now you're trying to parent your teenager and you're doing what you know, what you learned, and it's not working. And it is so enormously frustrating. It's frustrating for you. It's frustrating for your teenager. And it's exhausting, like literally friggin' exhausting. And you're like, there has got to be another way. But again, nobody's teaching this. So how the heck are you supposed to know? Welcome so much. Wow. Hi. Welcome. Thank you for joining me on my Instagram Live. My name is Allie Payne, and I am a certified life coach, certified relationship systems coach. And this is my jam. This is what I talk about all the time because I know what it's like to be so filled with resentment. It's like a boiling pot all the time that just lifts the lid enough to stop it from making a huge mess all over the burner. And that's not a great relationship to have. Like, I love my kids, okay? I love my boys. Until I couldn't. Like I just couldn't. Because I felt so disrespected, taken for granted, unappreciated, that I didn't want to be around them anymore. And that broke my heart, as much as like I was equally filled with resentment and sometimes rage. Just me? I don't know. And then not knowing how to turn that around, because I just did more of what I knew. I did more of trying to control. I did more of compliance. I did more of I didn't want to do the guilt shame thing. I was pretty aware of that. But like then I would try setting consequences that were based in fear. Wow, because yes, this will get them to listen, right? Oh yes, this is how it's going to work. No. It's actually not. That is not how it works. I'm sorry. Okay, so let's unwrap this for a second. Sorry, I got all my notes here with me because you know me, I've got to have notes or who knows what we're going to end up talking about, and we could be here 5 hours later. Okay, so we do what we know, okay? Now, we do what we know, and what you know is probably whatever you learned in your family of origin, in your home. And again, I am not here to bash anybody's parents. I'm not here. That is not the point, okay? They did the best they could, and they did what they knew, which was probably better than what they got. A generation ago, that was what parenting was. So here you and I are, again, I skipped a lot of school, but I'm pretty sure I didn't skip the boundaries class. Nope, pretty sure I didn't. Nobody is teaching this. So this is not about you beating yourself up. This is not about feeling guilty because you don't get it. Where else would you have been taught this? I wasn't taught this. I didn't know what a boundary was until I was married for about 6 years and had 2 babies. I didn't have a clue. I didn't even know I could set a boundary. Like, that's crazy. That's crazy talk. Because I was being the mom that I saw my mom be. I thought I was being the best mom by overcompensating for everyone, doing everything for everyone, putting myself last. Sound familiar? Anybody? Sound familiar? That is what I thought being a good mom was. And yet, I was so filled with anger and resentment. And so I turned that on myself. And I beat myself up. Like, there must obviously be something wrong with me if I watch my mom do this and I'm trying to do the same thing and I hate it. So therefore, I am a terrible mom. I am an uncaring wife and person. And I'm obviously selfish because I'm broken. And now what's going to happen is I'm going to break my children. Yes, everything that goes wrong with my children will also be my fault. Also, anybody sound familiar? Or am I just alone here? So that is really where I went with this whole thing. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you. You are my people. So this is what I am talking about in my upcoming 5 days to a better relationship with your teen. Boundaries is one of the most critical relationship skills, let alone parenting. And yet it's still not being talked. Like, boundaries is kind of like this sexy word, but we don't talk about it. We don't know what it is or what it actually means. We know we're trying it, but it's not working. And so this is one of the things that I'm covering in my 5-day challenge, in 5 days to a better relationship with your teenager. It starts June 21st. You can either hit the link in my bio, or we are having a ton of technology issues with that. You can just go to my website, alliepayne.com, and it's right along the top. Join the 5-day challenge. So I want you to be in there with me. It starts June 21st and it's 5 days, and this is one of the topics we cover. Because our brains, so I'm going to say this again, this has nothing to do with your intelligence. You're an amazing parent. You're an amazing person. And you're an amazing parent. And I know you are doing the very best you can. I know you are. The thing is, and this took me a little bit to figure out. I figured this out when I was in my life coach training and my relationship systems coach training. Our brains, okay, are wired to repeat what you know, even if you know that's not what you want to do. Like, isn't that kind of crazy? Like, what? So you know how you want to, hey Taylor, oh gosh, I love you. You are also my people. Thank you. So you know you want to do it different, and yet your brain keeps recreating what you know you don't want. And so there's this disconnect that goes on. And if you're like me, that was part of like the crazy making, was like, I must be broken. I must be stupid. I must not be smart enough. I must whatever. Because you learn whatever you got. So I grew up in a very fear-based control, guilt and shame environment. That was standard parenting back then. Again, I'm not shaming it, like whatever. It is what it is. But that was parenting. And so I knew there was a lot of the guilt and shame part that I didn't want to continue through with my kids. That was my choice. And so I had this vision. You can laugh with me if you choose. I had this vision that because I wasn't going to do the yelling, you see. I wasn't going to do the yelling. I wasn't going to do the nagging. Nope. I was going to be Mary Poppins. Okay, children, it is time for bed. Oh, look, they did not throw a tantrum. They were highly compliant. Welcome to my Mary Poppins parenting. Okay, now you can laugh. Now you're welcome to laugh. I think it's funny now. That is literally what I thought I was going to do. That's how I thought it was going to unroll. Holy cow, are you kidding me? Well, guess what? Yeah, it didn't. Right? Right? Yes, thank you. Thank you for not letting me know I'm alone. Sorry, grapefruit in my tooth. I was convinced that my children, because I wasn't using guilt and shame, were automatically going to be so highly compliant. I just wasn't going to have to deal with the rest of that. Hell no, that is not what happened. So my kids are human, not robots, and so they did act out. Shocker! And they weren't being the way I wanted them to be. So do you hear that? That's the definition of resentment. You are not being the way I want you to be. You are not being the way I need you to be. So I am super pissed now. Because, yeah, it all goes well. Exactly. When they're preteen, like right before the tweens, before the hormones go crazy, you can get away with actually a fair bit of control and compliance. And there's a lot of reasons why it works at a very young age. It really does. It does not work for teenagers. Just in case you're wondering, doesn't work with teenagers. Okay, sorry, I was saying something and then I lost my train of thought. Okay, so resentment. Resentment is you are not being the way I want you to be. And I get mad. And it triggers the little fear response in my brain because our brains love to be in control. Our brains, we go to fear really quick. Our fight or flight response is triggered and that doesn't work for us. And the world is not going to be like a jerk. So why would the parent, what? The world is not going to be a jerk kid. So, well, I'm not sure what you mean. Okay, so resentment is also this. This is what happens that leads to your nagging and your yelling. Okay? When you don't understand what a boundary is, so you're just trying to use compliance or control or whatever it is that you were used to, that you were raised in, that doesn't work. So you start getting resentful. That's not working. You become the boiling pot with the lid, right? Where you are just taking enough steam off there so it doesn't lose its crap all over, which also happened. Imperfect Parenting Club, welcome. And then you start to get to where you are bending over backwards to get someone else to change so that you don't have to. You are doing everything in your power to get someone else to change so that you don't have to. That is resentment. And that's what it starts to look like as a parent. That's why control and compliance come in, because you're trying to get them to be different because then you don't have to change. Now, why would you need to change? Well, that's what boundaries are. Because in order to set a boundary, you might have to change the way that you think, change the way that you see behavior modification. Maybe there's something outside of control and compliance that you haven't entertained or maybe haven't even heard of before. And if you haven't, that is okay. You are welcome here. There is no shame or judgment here. So this is really important stuff. One of the mamas who took my 5-day challenge, she told me that her 16-year-old son and her were constantly at war. They literally couldn't say anything without something blowing up. And now that she's used the tools that I give in this 5-day challenge, they are communicating with so much more ease, and they actually, wait for it, are enjoying their time together. Can you even imagine that with your 16-year-old son? Like, what? What is this magical unicorn you speak of? It is possible. It is possible. So we go from having resentment, which isn't working, and so we go farther down the control and compliance path. It's not working. Now, here's the thing. When I talk to people about boundaries and consequences and resentment and how to get out of where you are, if you decide it's not working, it's not for me to judge. If you decide that that's not working and you want it to feel different, you just don't want to feel like you're trying to be the consequence queen, like let's take that crown off and put that down. Then what if there was something in the middle between control and compliance, fear, guilt, and shame, which for a lot of situations is how you and I were raised, okay? And fun parent, Disney dad, fun mom, I'm your friend first, everything goes. When I'm talking about boundaries and consequences, the most of the people who hear me are hearing I'm saying this isn't a proven relationship skill. Like it's not actually sustainable or an effective way to have a relationship with your child. People assume I'm saying, go do this, go be their friend, go be fun mom, go be Disney dad. No, I'm not. I am super strict, you guys. You go ask my kids, I'll tell you what, they know exactly where I stand, right, Taylor? You tell them. I don't take crap. And I'll tell you why. Because I understand boundaries now. That's why. But that doesn't mean I'm mean. Because I've learned how to do boundaries from a place of love and respect. So if you're talking about a middle ground for between the control and compliance and the just have free for all, boundaries and consequences done properly are the middle ground. It is the middle ground. It is the way to have the structure, to have a sense of discipline that is loving and respectful. It's actually the middle ground I wanted in my Mary Poppins parenting. I just didn't really get how that happened. I just totally did not get it. I did not get it. So when I learned that boundaries, that I needed to change my thinking, I needed to spend a whole lot less energy trying to change my kids and their thinking, or shame them into it, or guilt them into it, or resent them for not being how I wanted them to be. And I had to look here. And I learned what boundaries were. I learned that one of the people who took my 5-day challenge, she said, when I said the word respect, it literally blew her mind. It changed everything in that moment about how she parented. It was mind-blowing for her. When I said boundaries come from respect for yourself first. So instead of an outside-in approach, which is the control, compliance, guilt, shame, fear, it's all about them being a certain way so I can feel the way I want to feel. Boundaries, and if healthy boundaries, okay, come from inside out. So I have to understand what it feels like to be respected first. And P.S. resentment, that's your red flag. That's your red flag that there's a boundary missing. I have to be willing to own my own experience and understand, what does it feel like to be respected? How can I go and communicate this to my family in a way that is respectful and loving for myself first, then respectful and loving for them, and hold that in a way, it's not movable. Now, some boundaries are negotiable. Like some of them. Often there's like a bottom line, and then there's like a gray area up to that boundary. So that area might be negotiable, but your bottom line is not. That's also the difference between control and compliance. I said, this is what goes. There's no negotiation. We're not in a conversation. Now, just because boundaries are more of a conversation doesn't mean that they're a free-for-all. In fact, boundaries are a corral, not a 10-foot, 6-inch thick concrete wall that nobody can escape from or nobody can get into. Boundaries are more like a corral, and there's a gate. There's a gate. You're teaching people how to treat you instead of expecting or assuming they're going to know how to treat you. Have you done that? Oh, Lordy, I've done that. Because why? Because my brain makes up that it's easier. If someone else just knew how I wanted to be treated and what I was thinking, and if they would have taken their telepathic pill that morning, I wouldn't have to do the work, and this would just be easier. Why? Why won't they take the pill? Thank you! Thank you for saying I'm not alone. Oh, yes! Wouldn't it be awesome if you're as old as me and you watch Star Trek and you remember, was it Shirley? No. Beverly, and she was a beta, and betas could read other people's thoughts and thinking. Oh man, if I could grow up in the beta culture where they could read what I was thinking and then they would just take care of my boundaries for me so I wouldn't have to do the work, I'd be so happy. But that doesn't exist. Oh, thank you, Danielle. Well, listen, I'm running a 5-day challenge, okay? 5 days to a better relationship with your teen. It starts June 21st, and boundaries and consequences are one of the biggest mind-blowing nights of the whole thing. This challenge starts June 21st. It goes for 5 days. It's all in a private Facebook group. It's live, but it's all stored there for at least a month, so it doesn't matter if you miss a night. You can go at your own pace. And it's $9, you guys. It's $9. You can hit the link in my bio or just go to my website, alliepayne.com, and it's right along the top. Join my 5-day challenge. Make sure you get in on it. So when you go to, Danielle, so just go to if the link, I'm having tech issues, okay? So if the link in my bio is not working, just go to alliepayne.com and it's right on the top. Join my 5-day challenge, okay? So boundaries are about me knowing what works for me and what doesn't work for me and being able to communicate that in a way that, thank you, Danielle. Well, I'm happy that I found you too. Thank you. Are being able to communicate that in a way that works where people clearly understand what it means. But it doesn't mean that you don't, it's in the private Facebook group for at least a month. All the videos, all the content, it's all stored there. So yeah, if you can jump in live, great. And if you can't, that's great. It doesn't matter. It's all good. You can still ask all your questions, you guys, and I'll still be answering all of them. Like I'm there for a week. So yeah. When you can communicate your boundaries, that's one thing, okay? But I don't know about you, teenagers, human beings aren't perfect. People are going to bust through your boundaries. Because I don't know, like I think that's literally teenagers' missions in life, right? Like that's what they do. So then let's talk about consequences. Why don't your consequences work? I'll tell you why they don't work. Because consequences, first of all, don't come from a position of anger or reaction, like a screw you or, oh yeah, and it's retaliation. Can you feel that? Like, oh, you little so-and-so of disrespectful, unappreciative, ungrateful. Oh, I'm going to show you. And we get there. Oh my gosh, thank you so much. Muggleborn 1024, thank you so much. That is so kind of you. So this is why consequences don't work. Because consequences, you can have figured out what boundaries were, right? Sorry, I am just covered in hair and it's bugging my arm. I don't know. Apparently I'm hairy today. If your boundaries get settled and you figure that out, but then you still are using consequences to use the old control, compliance, fear, guilt, shame, you're off the rails again. And that's okay. Again, like this is learning. You guys, this took me years to figure out. Years. I have been practicing this for 16 years now. And I still notice myself getting resentful because you can't have a boundary or like you can't know every place you need a boundary. It's not possible. So a lot of times you can know your boundaries, like let's say 10 of them, and you go out and you set 10 of them with your kids. Like this is not workable. No, this is my bottom line. Sometimes you know the consequence. Sometimes you can set the consequence in advance. So it's totally transparent, which is another thing I request. Totally transparent on what the consequence is, whatever. And then a situation is going to arrive with your teenager or your spouse, I'm just saying, or your partner. And it'll be more in the moment. And it's like, oh, I feel really resentful right now. I can feel my ragey, like ragey Rachel is rising. No. So you have to set a boundary in the moment. Or you need to think about it for a sec because boundaries don't come from that reaction, fight or flight place in our brain. It's not an effective place to do that from. It's better to be in a place where you've backed away from the situation and you're calmer so that you're setting those consequences. Because otherwise you are more likely to set the consequence out of anger, retaliation, screw you, get even, which is revenge. And I don't know if you've looked at the word revenge, but even is in the word revenge. Okay. And so you start this whole weird cycle of revenge and resentment, anger, revenge, resentment, anger, revenge with your teenager. Anybody else have done that? Just saying. So when you're doing consequences, did you know that half the time if you ask your teenager what they think an appropriate consequence would be, that they'll come up with something way better than what you would have thought of? Did you know that? Like if you ask your teenager, if you can't think of what the consequence is, like I don't even know, because you're maybe still out of you're still pissed, right? If you ask your teenager about what happened and you are going through the process of trying to understand, because No matter how bad things get, if your teenager breaks a boundary, I do recommend that you take the time to understand what happened from their perspective. I'm not saying you need to agree with it. I'm not saying you need to believe it. But at least give them the respect. See, because that's the underlying thing we're talking about here. Respect. Boundaries come from a position of respect. So if you want them to respect you and your boundary, then for whatever happened, say this to them: help me to understand, or tell me your side, and listen. Listen open-mindedly. Because as a parent, I'll tell you, when we are pissed, when you're hurt and you're like coming at, you want to come at your teenager, you're not likely in an open-minded position to hear what they have to say, even if you don't agree. At least hear them out. Then you can re-communicate your boundary, whatever that was. And then you can say to your teenager, okay. Now, sometimes that's the end of it. Would you believe that? Would you believe it? Sometimes that's the end of it. You don't need to have a consequence. Sometimes you just need to restate, hey, we went over this. This is the boundary. If this happens next time, there's going to be a consequence. So sometimes that's all you need. But if there is going to be a consequence, you say to your teenager, okay, if you were me, if you were the parent, what would you do? What do you think would be an appropriate consequence? And you just ask them. Just ask them. Half the time they'll think of it. Now here's the next part, okay, of this. And again, if you're just checking in, I'm running, this is all part of my 5-day challenge. It's upcoming June 21st. I want you to be part of it. There's a reason why this feels so friggin' complicated. It's because we were not taught this. You and I were not raised in an era where this stuff happened. And I can tell you what, it's still not being taught in schools. So if you want to end the resentment, the nagging, the yelling, and feeling so like you want to love your child, but you just can't, join me in the challenge. Okay? I'm going to post this for sure. I will post it. Okay, so the consequence, when your teenager's in the consequence, right? This is another way that you might have been raised, I know I was, is in the consequence. Did you have this? Put a hand in the bottom here if this happened for you. You did something that was considered a transgression, right? That's how it was viewed as when I was a kid. And then in the consequence, your parents reminded you every single day how you messed up and what you did was wrong. Put a heck yeah or a me in the comments if that was you. Like, were you always reminded of what you did wrong? I don't know about you, but do you love to be reminded what a failure you are on a daily basis? Do you love to be reminded like how you messed up? I'm gonna opt out. I'm gonna say no. Actually, no, I don't. I don't love it at all. So when your teenager is in a consequence, whether you chose it or they chose it, this is an opportunity for you to build relationship with them. And I know your feelings might be hurt. Your feelings might be hurt that they broke your boundary. Well, of course they would. Thank you, Sarah. And you are totally entitled to that, to if you feel hurt. But you need to go process those hurt emotions somewhere else. At first, you don't process those with your child by telling them what a screw up they are and how much they messed up and how hurt you are. Please don't do that, because that is called shaming. Your processing, which is very real and very necessary, done with your teenager is shaming. So please don't do that, okay? When you're doing consequences, you get to encourage and build up your teenager. This is what it looks and sounds like. So let's say, I always use the example of washing the dishes for the week, okay? So they wash the dishes for the week. They hate it, like they literally hate it. Grab a tea towel, because you get to build relationship. Now, you might not talk during this whole thing, and don't make them talk. Don't force them to talk, because maybe they don't want to talk to you, but they're washing the dishes and they hate it. You get to say to them, at least at the end of every dishwashing session, look, I know you hate this, and I know it's not fun, and I want you to know you're doing a great job. That's it. Now, they're doing the consequence, they hate it, but you're encouraging and building them up in the process. Okay? Day 4 of 7 days of washing dishes comes around. Day 4. And maybe they didn't quite wash this certain pan right or this certain spoon right. You can say to them, look, you can get to teach them. Not condescendingly, but you get to say, hey, look, this is still a little bit dirty. I find when I wash this, I have to really scrub in the corner or use this scrub brush or blah, blah, blah. Use it as a teaching moment. Not, well, if you didn't do XYZ, you wouldn't be washing the dishes. So stop complaining. I know that's might be what you heard from your parents. I know. It's not an effective way of building the relationship that I know that you want with your teenager. And you know what? They want that relationship with you too. So the consequence is only an opportunity to build them up at how great they're doing. And if something like this happens in the future, you don't go back and remind them how dumb they were for doing whatever transgression they did. And if they hadn't, no. All you bring up is, yeah, remember you had to wash the dishes for a week and how much you hated it? And you did a really great job at it, even though it sucked. So consequences are not a way of holding someone under your thumb, reinforcing how wrong they were, making sure they understand how wrong they were. It's an opportunity to encourage and build up. All right. So that is how resentment, boundaries, and consequences tie together. That is why, for the most part, you and I don't understand what they are, and we struggle so much with them. And there is a whole lot of other stuff that goes on underneath of this that I'm going to cover in my upcoming live challenge, 5 days to a better relationship with your teen. I want you in there. It's $9, you guys. It's 5 days. It all happens in a private Facebook group. I go live for 5 days covering 5 key topics around parenting breakdowns. Boundaries is one of them. And all the content, it's all in there. If you can't catch the live, it's okay. I still answer questions. It stays in there for at least a month. So you can replay, you can re-download stuff, whatever you need that to look like for you, it's all there. Do it at your own pace, okay? And I will still answer questions while I'm in there, all right? It happens at 1 p.m. Pacific every day. That's Vancouver time. 4 p.m. Eastern, New York or Toronto time. That is 9 p.m. in the UK and 6 a.m. in Sydney, Australia. All right, so 1 p.m. Pacific. I know that that's a tough time if you're at work. I get it. I'm trying to cover all the time zones. And remember, all the content will be there for a month. This is 5 days, 30 minutes to 45 minutes, plus all my resources that I use with my clients, all for you, which is an over $1,200 value of that much coaching time and all my resources and the worksheets for $9. That's this many. $9. Okay, you can get there and register. So what you want to do is hit the link in my bio. If it's not working, okay, if it is working, hit the link in my bio. Go to join the 5-day challenge, hit that button. If it is not working, because I'm having problems right now with the link in my bio, go to allypayne.com. Can someone type in the comments allypayne.com, ALYPAN.com, okay? And it's right along the top. It says join my live challenge, June 21st. It's right there on the top banner. You hit that button, fill in your name and your email, and you'll go on the wait list because registration doesn't open. Registration is only open from June 14th right until the challenge. But you want to make sure that you fill in that form because then you're going to be the first to be notified when registration opens. The challenge itself, again, it goes from June 21st to June 25th. It's 5 days, okay? And you'll get access to it for over a month. It is a whole place to also be in a community of caring and courageous parents just like you. I absolutely do not tolerate any shaming, blaming, ripping people apart. You will be kicked out so quick you won't know it hit you. And that's my boundary. That's not negotiable. It is a supportive community where there is no judgment. Everything is welcome, all questions, all perspectives. And if we want to disagree, I'll love you while we disagree, okay? So make sure that you join me. Thank you so much for typing that in there. Is that Cape Zone? Thank you for putting that in there. Go to my website, make sure that you register, and I'm going to see you on the 21st for my live 5-day challenge. I hope I kind of see you before that, either on TikTok, here on Instagram, Facebook. I'm all over those places. I will be here live again in my stories, answering more of your questions and talking a lot more about boundaries, consequences, and resentment and how it all relates together. All right, thanks everybody for joining me. I really appreciate it. Again, my name is Allie Payne, and I am so grateful for all of you being part of my community today. All right, take care. Bye.